Welcome back to Just Another Solar Podcast with Luke Beattie. That's me, and Karl Jensen. G'day, Karl.
That's me. How you doing, Luke?
I'm good, thanks, mate. All right, let's get in with our guest today. Our guest is Sophie Wright. Now, Sophie Wright is with Vortex Electrical, but also has a new venture. She's the Director of In Charge, otherwise known as Geelong Electric Vehicle Chargers. She's also on the Solar Vic Reference Group and a member of AWISE. I'm sure there's probably other things we could put in there, but welcome, Sophie.
Thank you, Luke, and thank you, Karl, for having me today.
Amazing that we have another amazing talent like yourself on the show. We're always blown away by our guests and the contributions that they make to the industry. Tell us a bit about yourself, Soph.
Well, I'm actually fairly new to the industry by industry standards, I guess. I only came into the solar world at the beginning of 2019. So I've got a very, very kind of eclectic background that led me to here, and kind of wish I'd got into solar a lot earlier because it's a really fantastic industry, and I'm glad that I'm here now and making the most of it. So yeah, really, really happy to have found this space.
The Smart Energy Conference in Sydney, you did a presentation, which there would have been perhaps 150 people at, about discounting in the solar industry. Can you give us the short version of that 25, 30-minute presentation?
Yeah, I'll try, Karl. It's a topic I'm very passionate about. I really do believe that we can be our own worst enemy in the solar industry, and you're going to get people that sell on different grounds, and you'll always get that in whatever industry. So you'll get those players that sell volume at a cheap price, and you'll get the small players that sell a small amount of installations at the higher end. So you've got all of that in between. But really, when we start to discount and discount just becomes this price war between retailers and installers, we're really doing ourselves a massive disservice. And when people are installing systems that are at cost price, and really just everyone loses motivation when you get to that point. Installers are just installing, then people are cracking the whip to get a job done and do it quickly. The guys on the roof and the girls on the roof aren't having any fun because they're just feeling that pressure, and it just becomes about volume. And look, I'm in a different space. Working for Vortex, we're a really small company, and we have the luxury of being able to, price ourselves at a point where we do those systems that we want to do. But really, it's a different space when you're selling quality and your team are really passionate about what they do as well. They're just not coming and doing the same stuff over and over again and feeling that pressure of, installing X amount of systems a week. They know that they can take their time and do something the best way, which is what we should all be doing. And, when people are just selling on volume, and I know that I'm just generalizing a little bit here, and there are different aspects of quality in this space, but generally when people sell it in that volume and they're just saying, there's 6.6 kilowatts on your roof, bang it up, you're not getting a system that's designed to be what a customer needs. No one's taken into account what that customer's usage is, what their future is, and then you get dissatisfied customers. But they're happy at the time because they've got this really cheap system.
If I said to you as a customer, I said, hey, Sophie, look, I really appreciate your expertise and your advice, and I like your proposal. It's better than all the other person's proposal. You're just too expensive. Mm-hmm. What's your response?
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes you get that, and they walk away and they accept something that's a lot cheaper. And to be honest, you know what it's like in sales, Karl. Sometimes it's hard not to take that personally and be like, ouch. But I think it's really about educating customers, and you get to a point where when you do educate a customer, they're like, you know what? No, I really believe in what you're telling me, and I'm really confident in your product and your company. That is the biggest win. So you've got to take those as a better win than the customers that you lose based on price. And I think really when you have that conversation, you try to educate people at the beginning who come in just really looking for the cheapest system. And I will say to people that say, well, you've quoted me $7,000. I've seen these $1,000 systems online, and that's all I can afford. I will turn around to people and say, if that's what you can afford, please do me a favor and just hold off. Okay, just hold off for now and save up and get something that's a bit better. And I'll guide you in that. If it's not us that's installing it, that's okay, but don't go with that, because I know that company is going to do a really crazy job, and you're not going to get what you want.
So how do we
got to
get
kind of take them in.
so you're already there selling quality and systems that are suitable for the customers. How do we get all of the industry up to that standard?
I think that's possibly a bit of a pipe dream, Luke, to get there. I'm not that naive that, one day it's all going to be like that. But I think really educating people, and customers are getting a lot more savvy in that space. We hear reference all the time, particularly in Victoria, to sort of, the Pink Bats program, and is solar the same way? I think customers are learning more, and they're learning more about the process of, electrification and what that means and price, and they're becoming more aware. And if we continue doing that, that's what we can do. I think particularly in the new build space, there's a lot of education that needs to happen in that space for both builders and homeowners that are building. And if we continue that to educate on all different levels, then that's probably the best we can do.
So electrify everything is something that we're all passionate about. How do you guys communicate it to your customers, and what do the solutions look like?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've been on this kind of rant, I suppose, for a long time. Sol Griffiths, yes, a big fan of his work as well. I know Karl, you guys have mentioned him a few times.
You just need to get him on the show, Sophie.
I know, we tried to get him at our AWISE conference, but unfortunately it didn't happen. But I'm seeing a real shift in that, and that's what I talk about from the education piece. I used to have a conversation maybe once a month where a customer was going down that path. So they were building a home, they were talking about wanting to fully electrify their home, and I would be really excited and be like, thank goodness, I don't have to start at the beginning of this conversation. And now more and more, I'm having that conversation 3 or 4 times a week now, and this is only 6, 7, 8 months on. So it's really amazing and fantastic to see that. So clearly there's education that's happening in that space. There's a lot of stuff in the press. So, that really helps. But then still, my friend the other day called me around. They said, can you quote us some solar? We're building this $900,000 house. So I went in and I said, so tell me, what's your setup? What's your heating? They're putting in this massive gas ducted system. And I just said, what the hell are you doing?
Indeed.
And I was very blunt. Obviously, I know these people are not normally that straightforward. But, it's just, they looked at me like I was crazy. And, then obviously taking a step back and then educating people around, well, if this is your forever home and you're investing a lot of money building this beautiful house that's really taking everything that you've saved up for, stop and pause and think about this for a moment. So, it's nice to get in at that point and be able to turn people around.
Indeed. The number of people, I had a neighbour out walking the dog, and he said, I'm so jealous of all of your solar panels. And I said, you don't have to be jealous, just go and buy your own. And when I said, what are you doing for heating and cooling? He says, I've got gas and I've got EVAP. And I said, how long ago did you build your house? He says, 2 years. And I just, as you say, shake your head, go, what are we doing? This is crazy. It's actually not that much more expensive to do splitties than it is to do gas and EVAP anyway.
But look, I was very naive. We did a big renovation on this house only 5 years ago, just before I entered the solar industry. And we put in ourselves this big, expensive gas ducted heating system because our electrician and friend said, no, this is what you want, okay? Bit naive at the time, yes. Subsequently, we're now fully electric, and within 2 years of installing that very expensive system, our gas has been disconnected. A funny side story is that I since went to quote his house fully electric. He wasn't practicing what he was preaching to all his customers because his new house was a fully electric home.
Well, do you think you might have had some influence there, Soph?
I don't know. Like to think so.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, I think it's important that we're having these conversations. I put a post on the My Energy Efficient Home group that if anyone knew anyone affected by the floods, that they should talk to them about putting in better appliances the second time round rather than replacing with the same stuff. And there were some people that were quite supportive, and there was another whole cohort of people that were, oh, no, these people have endured this incredible hardship. And I'm thinking to myself, hang on a sec, we're causing this. It's called climate change. Stop putting gas there, and we won't have these.
So
obviously.
in the news this week, Andrew Forrest, Twiggy, has committed hundreds of millions of dollars to rebuilding Ukraine once the war is over, and also one of the big US investment groups, BlackRock, as well. And Zelensky was saying this is a great thing because we're getting rid of the old Soviet-era Russian rubbish, and we can build as green and as new as possible. So if you look at the situation of the floods, Karl, that's a perfect example on a smaller scale, that this is the opportunity now where it's been destroyed. We can rethink and rebuild rather than have, like yourself, Sophie, if you've installed a new gas heating and cooling system and you pull it out within 2 or 3 years, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But interesting that they're talking about that, not saying, oh, this is terrible, we're just going to rebuild as it was, like they did post-World War II in Europe. They're saying we're going to build it better. And that's a good idea for people who are affected by things like floods, who are moving house, who are building houses. It's good conversation.
And the money's there, right, Luke?
Well, the money's there for sure.
But you've been there, right? You've been to Romania as a consultant on a solar farm deal, right? We know that the money's there. Hungary.
Romania, close enough. We'll know the Ukrainian border. That's right.
It's still next to the Ukraine. But, as a consultant on a solar farm project on the other side of the world, it's amazing how far the tentacles of us Aussies stretch.
Well, I think that's a good point, Luke. Like, as long as people are stopping to think what they're doing and then making a conscious decision to change something, then we're making steps in the right direction. So, that's great. I speak to people all the time, and I come at solar from a very holistic electrify your house perspective. And one of my questions is, okay, so your hot water, how old is it? And we talk about that, and maybe it's only 2 years old. And I always reference to people, I say, okay, do me a favor and remember the crazy solar lady that's here talking to you today, because one day that hot water system is going to die, and you're going to go and have a shower, and you're going to get cold water, and you're going to try and call a plumber who's going to just say, yes, well, let's put another gas hot water system in there and just replace like for like. I can do that for you today. But can you just pause and remember this conversation, and then we can look at a heat pump? And it's funny because I started having that conversation 2-3 years ago, and now I get people who call me up and say, I remember, crazy solar lady, I need a heat pump. And then we move on. So
I'm cold, wet, and naked. Can you help me? Absolutely.
Sure.
I'll be there.
Perhaps not, Karl. But, it works. That's cool. That slow education, it might not happen straight away, but people will remember and they'll pause, and then they'll make a different decision.
Very good. Now, you've got some other controversial views, or controversial for some, logical for others, around salespeople in solar and having to be accredited. Do you want to just share about that?
Yeah, well, I do have this conversation with lots of people, that I could go and grab whoever off the street and say, hey, come and sell solar with me, and have them in your house quoting you solar that afternoon without having to have any sort of qualification or know what they're talking about. Show them near maps and, this is how you throw a panel on a roof. Happy days, let's all go and sell solar. And I think that without any sort of standards in that space, where you guys must see it all the time. I see it all the time. I see these systems that are just like, what? That is not even going to work, whether it be the panel placement or the system design, because somebody has designed it just to sell a system. I've done my CEC accreditation. I've got PV Grid Connect and battery. And, I did that for a couple of other reasons. I'm a bit of a study nerd, so that was one of them, but to give me more credibility in the industry as well. But having gone through that process and actually learnt something and being able to apply it, and then know what you're talking about, know what the design parameters of an inverter are, or what you've got to look for when you're designing a system. Sure, I ask questions of the installers all the time as well, and we work as a team. But it enables you to actually design a system properly than just say, well, I can fit 20 panels on that roof. That's what you're going to get.
It's true. To play devil's advocate, though, the amount of sales consultants we're going to need for the industry to meet the targets is high. So could you argue that it would sit with the organisations Or would you push to have something like real estate agents where they just need to get that certificate to sell?
Well, if we're talking about making our industry credible, then why not have a program? It doesn't necessarily need to be CEC design accreditation, but something that gives that general level of overview and at least awareness of what it takes to do a system design or what you need to know to sell solar, and make that a requirement. Like, yes, real estate has it for a reason, because people are investing a lot of money in a property and people need to know what they're talking about. It's the same with solar. And if I can pull anyone off the street to sell it, and people do, then we're just asking for trouble. And we want customers to invest in something that's going to be a great solution for them, not just because somebody sold them based on getting commission in their back pocket.
Yeah, so Victoria is a more highly regulated state than any of the others. Obviously, we have, in order to participate in the Solar Vic scheme, we have a code of conduct. That code of conduct pretty much means that Solar Victoria can boot people out if they don't behave in a reasonable sort of a fashion. Do you think that sort of oversight or scheme would be useful in other parts of the states? In other states in Australia?
Yeah, but it's still not. It targets the retailer and the installer. It doesn't target the individual salespeople. So again, you could just have whoever working within that organisation. And as long as generally you're following that code of conduct, then happy days. But unless you get specific to the people that are actually out there talking to customers, then I think that's where you need to look. Yes, we're very heavily regulated in Victoria. Generally, I'm not one for a lot of regulation, but we seem to be doing pretty well overall here. So let's just see what happens.
It does lift the quality and the standard, though.
It does, absolutely.
Can't be a bad thing.
Yeah, but it's like everything. I think you tend to find that the people who are always doing the right thing then get bogged down with more standards, and the guys that want to find loopholes in everything will still do it, won't they?
Look, we have lots of conversations with installers about the even simple stuff like the selfie pics and the increased requirements for claiming STCs, and I try and smooth them over a bit and say, hey, look, the reason why this is there is because someone's been caught out doing the wrong thing. And it's a bit like speed limits and those sorts of things on our roads. Typically, the speed limit reflects the level of danger on that road for people to hurt themselves. If that's what we need to do to keep our industry under control and people not rorting the system in terms of specifically the STCs, then we'll have a better industry. So just got to cop it on the chin and allow for it and charge for it.
Yeah, that's right. Charge for it. Then people won't feel that they need to cut corners.
Now, another controversial view that you have is that salespeople shouldn't be getting commissions.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people are going to get a bit passionate about this, probably.
Especially the salespeople.
Yeah, I know. And look, honestly, I think about this a lot because, I sell quite a lot of solar, and probably I should be on commission because I'd be probably taking home a lot more money if I was. But, it's like the solar coaster. Yeah, sales go up and down and up and down. And if you are a commission-based salesperson in an industry that is based on designing a system and should be based on designing a system that is around the customer's needs, you're going to get some salespeople that will just quote a system based on how much commission they get in their pocket. So whether it's the largest system or the most expensive system, or however that commission works, there's a different driver there for salespeople. You remove the commission and you pay a really good base salary, then you're going to get people, and again, this is probably a pretty idealistic and naive view, but you're going to get salespeople that are designing genuinely based on what the customer needs. So assessing what their level of usage is, what their roof space is, what they're going to need for the future, and designing a system around that and the customer's budget rather than what's going to be driven by their commission. Now, obviously, there are different commission structures and some of those might overcome some of those issues. But, yeah, it's a good consideration for businesses to have.
Coming from the business point of view, though, it can be very hard to retain good staff.
Yeah.
And, financial incentive is one of the ways you can actually retain good salespeople, even the ones who are doing the right thing.
Yeah, and some people will be purely driven by money. Others will be driven by working in a good team or good working conditions. I know for myself, I really appreciate when I've got flexibility and freedom. I end up working a hell of a lot more than I should anyway, but I know that, if I've got an appointment in the middle of the day or I need to go and do something with the kids, not an issue. No one's even going to ask the question because I've got that flexibility. So for me, that's really, really valuable. And I think it's about finding what your staff need and what floats their boat rather than just financial incentives. So there are different ways that we can go about it. Obviously, yeah, some sort of bonus structure at some point can be really nice. Nice Christmas bonus. Shout out to my boss. That would be really nice. Thanks.
Merry Christmas. Or a Christmas
Merry
party.
Christmas, Sophie.
That's
Here's
always a
your
good
bonus.
start.
Yeah.
No, I understand that. But what I hear from both of the last points we spoke about is that you've got a heart for quality and making sure the customer gets a right outcome. So that's the motivation behind all of this.
Yeah, I'm really passionate about, the customers and, your little old retired couple who have no knowledge about solar and just want to be really trusting that they're doing the right thing and they're putting the best system on their house. And when you can do that and walk away and genuinely know that you've helped that person and you hear from them in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, and they're like, thank you so much, this is the best thing that we ever did, then, that for me brings a great deal of satisfaction. Or when they refer you to someone else, like referrals are just the icing on the cake.
Yeah. On that note, so I've been on the 1300 number for iStore this week. So all of the people that call up and ask for some advice or some specs or whatever, I do spend the time with them. I say to them, hey, look, if you're in the get off gas journey, talk to your installer about getting rid of your gas cooktop at the same time. The plumber and the electrician are there already, and most of the cost in an install is getting them there. So go to E&S Trading or go to Chandler's or whatever and buy an induction cooktop. And then when I refer those leads onto a solar business and the solar business owner rings me up and says, thanks, Karl, we're doing an aircon, we're doing a heat pump, and we're doing an induction stove while we're there. It's like, yes, I've got through to that customer, and not only are they getting a heat pump, but they're disconnecting gas, which is great.
That's excellent. So it's not just a business win, it's also for the customer. So coming back to...
Absolutely. And of course, they're going to tell their friends and telling their friends, hey, I've got off gas. I'm no longer paying my service fees. How do you do that? How do you get rid of your gas, hot water? Because electric's so expensive, boom.
Exactly.
It's a heat pump.
The best form of advertising, absolute best form of advertising is customer referrals. You cannot pay enough money for those. Genuine customer referrals are just gold.
And the greatest electrification is with vehicles going to EVs. So you've got a new venture.
Yes, I do.
Tell us about that.
Well, everyone tells me all the time that I should have my own business, and I have at different points in time. A few years ago, I had a business called the Paleo Connection, which was a bit of a random business, but successful in the short time that we had it. Is that
like paleo diets and...
Yeah. Sort of so, my background was in the weird space of Thermomix, actually. That's where I learned a lot.
Oh, you're a part of that cult.
That cult. I am your prime cult candidate, okay? So if someone's got a cult, sign me up because I tend to fall for these things.
But they're actually pretty cool devices, I've got to say.
Really cool.
They're really
and look, I was in a space when my kids were young. Someone talked about this crazy appliance. It was $2,000, and they said, come along and I'm having a demo. There's lots of food. And anyone that knows me knows that I eat a lot of food. I do a lot of exercise and I love eating food. So I was like, I'll be there. I'll come and eat the food, but there's no way I'm paying that much money. Anyway, long story short, fell into the world of Thermomix and was a great job for me while I had young kids, paid ridiculous amounts of money, got to travel the world and have a really great time. Probably should have stuck to it, really. but that sort of led to exploring different food and ways of eating. Anyway, there's a very long story, but a great background in very, very good sales training is network marketing, whatever you think about network marketing, and I have different viewpoints on that now. but world-class training. And the Paleo Connection was born from a friendship that I formed there, and it was the Australia's first and only, and unfortunately where we sold the business, they didn't continue it, but paleo event, market event, and we had people from all over Australia at our 2 events, and really successful. But it wasn't something that we wanted to continue at the time. Anyway, so that was one of my other business ventures, and I've been wanting to do something again, sort of toy with the idea of doing something in the solar space, but lots of people are doing that. And 3 years ago, after one conversation on New Year's Eve, I think it was, and a couple of rosés probably, I ended up buying the business name Geelong Electric Vehicle Chargers. And this year decided it was time to actually do something with that business name that I just kept paying for, and have started that up with Simon, not Simon from Vortex, Simon Farrar from who I met through Velocity, and then we worked at RACV Solar together, and now we have Geelong Electric Vehicle Chargers together. So really born out of the idea that lots of solar installers now are doing EV charging as well as heat pumps, as well as split systems, as well as everything else that they're kind of doing. But we wanted to sort of take that and separate it and do electric vehicle charging to the point where, again, we're tailoring a solution based on what the customer needs. So for some people, that might be a Tesla Gen 3 charger with Charge HQ, someone like Karl, all over that. But, you get your double thumbs up. You get your retired couple who have just bought an EV and really aren't very savvy on their iPhone. They might be best suited to a Zappy where they can press a button and actually physically know what's going on. And then being able to set that system up for them based on what their needs are, whether they've got solar and they want to charge from excess solar. So doing that in the resi space, commercial space, new builds and apartments. So all of those solutions is what we're building, and hopefully we'll build and build and build.
I actually think that for grey nomads, electric might be absolutely the answer, because they're used to going to car parks or caravan parks. They're used to plugging in their caravan to be able to plug in their EV for a few days and carry on at 10 times less cost than petrol or diesel is just awesome. And then that costs, obviously everyone that's got some kind of a motorhome has got every fuel-saving device known to man on it to try and get a bit more out of it, but they're thirsty. So I think that there's a great opportunity for EVs in that space.
Yeah, well, my mother had a Tesla before me, so, it just goes to show.
So obviously you saw the opportunity. You've started the business.
Yeah.
How big is the opportunity that you see in that space?
I think it's where solar was, back when solar kicked off. And, while it's kind of in its infancy at the moment, we can just see it happening. Particularly down in this area around Geelong, there really aren't a lot of chargers around here. There's not a hell of a lot of EVs. That's just happening everywhere at the moment, but that demand is going to happen, and it's going to happen really quickly. I think it's really interesting to start considering about, workplaces and the need for EV charging in there for staff and for vehicle fleets. Based on my mother's experience before I even had my own EV, she lives in a big apartment block in Melbourne, and all the controversy around them putting in an EV charger into that apartment block and what that meant and the ramifications of that. There's so much happening in that space, and it's just going to be really fast. And it's changing every week. What the solutions are and what's out there literally changes every week.
Because I suppose you're unearthing all the challenges as you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take the apartment one, you've got the objection from other tenants and the body corporate for various reasons. Then you've got the electrical challenges. If you're going to add multiple charges, what are some of the other challenges that you unearth as you go along?
Well, that's one of the biggest ones. We're working with an apartment complex in Geelong at the moment. And one of the interesting parts about that sort of setup is most of the apartments, their car park is linked to the title. So it's not even a matter of saying, okay, well, we're going to just, these half a dozen car parks that are at the front of the car park will make these EV charging friendly, because they can't move a apartment holder's car park just like that, because it's in legal document. So
Hadn't
even
thought of that one. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but there are bits and pieces that you can do around that. We're having interesting conversations of things that you can do in those circumstances. Those sort of logistical requirements aren't things that most people think of. The apartment centre that we're working with, we came to them with a solution, and then they came back with, oh, what about this charger? It's like half the price. And it's explaining to them that potentially they're going to have 130 car parks at the end point with 130 electric vehicle chargers in them. And they need to have a system that can do that load management, not just picking the cheapest charger off the shelf and putting them in every car park. So again, it's educating about what can happen and what that means for them, both now and into the future in that space.
And I suppose some of them, load management is one thing, but considering SP Pro and batteries or something similar would be the next step.
Absolutely. So all of those things have to be considered. A lot of these apartments too, the one that we're working with, they don't even have solar on their roof. So it's all about what's going to happen with that load management and all of those different ramifications. And that's just in the apartment space. Then you've got new requirements on, new builds and what that means. You see posts on Cutters already, people saying, oh, I've got to install an EV charger. Like, there's more than just installing a charger. And while we don't have specific regulations right now, which might be a good thing, that's going to happen pretty quickly as well in the next sort of 18 months, 2 years, and probably needs to happen, because you're just going to get people that install a charger without kind of thinking about what that means. It was interesting to see at All Energy the amount of, pretty much every stand had an EV charging option. And I made the mistake when I started walking around that expo of going to find out about every EV charger, until you kind of realise that they're all pretty much of a muchness, apart from those that aren't. So, there's all those different solutions, and everyone's trying to offer one. And even in our research on what we want our standard product offering to look like, we've found it really interesting, the level of support for different products. Already, like some of these companies that we wanted to work with would ring up and you just wouldn't even get a voicemail, wouldn't even get a phone call back. So you're thinking, well, if they can't call me back when I'm inquiring about selling their product, what's it going to look like if I've got a service issue?
Do you think some of the early movers were more based on an e-commerce model than a solution model? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like all of these products, we really need to refine that, and customers need to be aware of what they're installing and working out whether that's the best solution for them as well. And having that support, and we see it already in the fast chargers that are around, when they break down all the time and they sit there broken down for long periods of time because there's no one there to service it. So all of those things have to be considered and arrangements put into place to make sure there's maintenance and service on all of those different products.
Yeah, so my quick just jump in there over the top is anyone who's installing a charger on a commercial premises, even if the owner wants a lower rate of charge, we should do that in programming and still connect them to 3 phases. The EV chargers at Chadstone are a disaster. There must be 50, 60 metres of 6 mil cable, and they run at 210 volts. And obviously, we've been down this road with undersizing circuit breakers in the solar industry. Put a 5 kilowatt inverter on a 25 amp circuit because that's fine. That's the minimum. It should be fine. It's a C-curve breaker. And 2 years later, we're back there changing a $3.50 circuit breaker for another 25 amp breaker that's going to fail in another 2 years, when we should have just pulled 6 mil cable in the first place. EV chargers the same. We should be pulling 10 mil cable single phase and running a 40 amp circuit. at a minimum. And at the end of the day, I just don't accept this. Oh, it's only a few meters, so I'll skimp out and run 6 mil, because the cheapest part of that installation is probably going to be the cable, and the most expensive bit is getting you there. And of course, the sparkies and electricians, we make money marking up the product. So if the product costs $40 and we mark it up 30%, we make $12. If it costs $100 and we mark it up 30%, we make $30. It makes sense to put in more cable than what we need. These appliances are using 40, 50 kilowatt hours at a go. We might charge it once a week. We might charge it every night. We might go away for the weekend and need it for the next day, Monday. We might come home with no charge remaining and charge it up 60 kilowatt hours overnight. So we're running that cable flat out for many, many hours. So we should be doing the right thing by the customer and putting some decent copper in there.
Yeah, do it once, do it right, Karl. That's my philosophy. And having that longer term kind of approach to what we're doing as well. It's going to mean that, again, in that industry, which is clearly evolving, that we're going to have happy customers down the track.
Exactly. So a customer might start out with a small EV that's only capable of using 11 or 12 kilowatts on 3 phases. And so to cable it for that size, I think crazy, because there's a good chance that they've also got a Land Cruiser or a work ute, and those types of vehicles are going to be things like Rivians and Cybertrucks, and they will be able to charge at 22 kilowatts, and the customer is going to need that. So as you say, do it once, do it properly.
Yeah, but it's a fun space. Like it's evolving all the time, and it's fun. So we're having a bit of fun with it as well. And a lot of people are really interested and excited by it. A lot of people are still really scared about it. You get the EV haters, which are always fascinating to have conversations with. But, we've got some good things coming up involving you too, Karl, next weekend. So we're super excited about things like that. So next
tell
week,
us about that. I've just heard a whisper you guys are going to be driving in Karl's Model 3 performance.
So there's a big event in Geelong that happens. It's usually an annual event. Of course, it hasn't happened really for the last couple of years, but it's called Geelong Revival, which is a big hot rod car event. So a lot of the classic cars, a lot of people bring their cars, a big show. But now there's a really large EV segment in that too. So we're going to be down there at that event next weekend at the expo. So we'll be there on the Saturday and Sunday with a stand. And part of what we're doing over that couple of days is Karl is going to, I'm hoping it's you, Karl, because I think that you'll drive a lot faster than anyone else. Karl is going to be driving his Model 3 performance in the sprint race for us with some signage on his car, hopefully very good advertising, and hopefully that'll be a bit of fun. I think Karl is very excited by that.
Well, it's also one of the most experienced ones. I mean, he had a WRX that was tweaked and used to race that. Anyone who's ridden in the car with Karl knows that he doesn't mind a bit of speed and performance.
Well, hang on, Luke. I don't think have we had a podcast since All Energy? Yeah, I think we have. But I seem to remember when I let you drive it, we had to pry you out of it.
It's true. It was a lot of fun, that's for sure.
But no, apparently the last time the event was run, the top 2 cars outright were, it was a Porsche Taycan and a P100D Tesla. So it'll be good to see a couple of cars turn out for that. And of course, the classic historic stuff that I still enjoy. And obviously it brings lots of families. We just hope that the weather holds out.
Now, you mentioned All Energy before.
Yep.
I went to the Recharge Your Spark, the AWISE event. So you're one of the founding members of Australian Women in Solar Energy, AWISE. I can say, honestly, that was probably the best event I went to that week. Super impressed. Really good speakers, really good vibe. Lots of men and women there, and just buying into it. So it made a whole lot of sense. Tell us about what's going on with AWISE at the moment. Yeah,
sure. Well, look, it's really grown very rapidly from something that started as a conversation during COVID and ended up with 6 of us as the founding members deciding on what we wanted to do and wanting to really encourage females into the industry and exploring opportunities for females and just supporting, everybody that wants that opportunity. I mean, I didn't know about the solar industry until, a very short time ago. And yes, the event was amazing. Thanks for the feedback, Luke. And it's something that we heard from quite a number of people. Quite astounding when you think that was 6 of us that put that together, and the 6 of us are all phenomenally busy people. We don't just work full time. We all tend to do a million different other things. A really beautiful group of women, Bobby, Christine, Lily, Keisha, Sam, that we all have the ability that we don't ever, we've learnt not to say sorry to each other when we don't get to do something that we committed to. And we all have different skills that really can bring an event like that together. So we were really proud of that. We're looking at having something again at Next All Energy, again the day before the event. We're going to claim that as ours. And I think already from the feedback, it's going to be bigger and better next year. And we've rebooked the venue, so we'll be going in there again, and potentially something at Smart Energy as well as different things that we do throughout the year. So we've done a lot of projects. Lily's done a couple of installations in Sydney on women's shelters. I've got one that's in Geelong that we're underway with at the moment. There's a women's rehab centre. It's a live-in centre that's being built in Mount Dunedin, and we've got some really generous donations for that project. So, and it's really lovely to work on things like that. The guys that are running the program are so very grateful. It's a fully electric live-in house, so their electricity bills are going to be through the roof. And
so AWISE is supporting a solar system.
Solar installation. Yeah.
Awesome.
So we've got all that product donated, and we're going to be doing the install. Vortex will be coordinating the install and donating that as well. And, that's just kind of like the gift that keeps on giving for, women that are in need, and, really helps to support a program like that long term. So that's some of the things that we're doing. Obviously, the conferences, we're looking at really solidifying what AWISE does. So watch this space in the next couple of months. We're really getting some specific direction around that and working with some really great people on what that looks like.
So you're going to continue to roll out some of these
initiatives,
charity type work for women's shelters or other organisations that it makes sense?
Yeah, that will continue. We also are asked all the time to have input in different programs, whether they're mentoring programs or females in trades. We're all really passionate about looking at the space of bringing females into in that education space, even at that primary school level, or, sort of year 7 and 8, not leaving it to year 11 and 12, but really encouraging that idea that the renewable space and solar, that has really great career potential. I've got a daughter who's going into year 12 next year, and I actually think that she would be amazing as an electrician and working in the solar space. I think it's right up her alley. And of course, she thinks that I'm just saying that because I work in the industry. But, that's not even on her radar. She goes to an all-girls school. They're not even offering physics next year. That just breaks my soul.
They're not offering physics.
No, they don't have enough girls to offer a physics class.
That just seems nuts. She needs to change school, Sophie. Big fan of STEM subjects. STEM subjects really important for everybody.
Absolutely. So, there's issues like that are still there, and I think it's really getting in again at that foundation level and creating that awareness, because we're going to have this massive shortage in the renewable space of qualified people and passionate people that want to come in and fill that skill shortage. And we need to start looking at where they're going to come from.
We're not going to get there if we just limit it to one gender.
Oh, correct. We've got that's 50% of the population we'll just wipe out.
Yeah, exactly. But it's good what you guys are doing, and we just encourage any companies. There's really 2 streams there. Number one, to engage in professional women who are involved, or those who want to champion women coming into the industry, one thing. But the other thing is it's a great cause, and you're obviously doing stuff. So you've got the support of manufacturers and distributors and anyone else. So anyone else who wants to help contribute and get some ownership there, I suppose they can get in touch with AWISE and work out how they can contribute as well, because it's, it's at the grassroots, and it's doing something that the industry needs and we all like to see. So just encourage any companies, small or large, have a look at what AWISE is doing and certainly reach out to them and see how you can support. And I have to say, after attending the Recharge Your Spark event, for the next event, make sure you register and get some of your team there as well. Men, women, doesn't matter. I got a lot out of it, and it's a very positive thing for the industry. So congrats to you and the team. You've done a great job.
Thanks, Luke. And I definitely think our next event before All Energy is going to sell out without a doubt, just from the feedback that we've had. And I'll do a little plug there. Looking for 2 Tesla Powerwalls for my Project 61. If anyone would like to help me out on those, I'd be greatly appreciative.
Very good.
Quite a sizable donation here these days, Sophie.
Absolutely.
Would that be on the VPP so they can get the loans rebate?
I've been quite good at selling the VPP trial in Victoria. So, yeah.
Yep. Now, when I reached out to you the first time to come on the podcast, you said, can you put it off for a few months? I'm doing a 100-kilometre run. Now, you only ran 50 Ks this time. But only 50 Ks is a bloody long way to run.
Luke,
how did that go?
I'm pretty crazy. So I've run ever since I was probably in grade 3. Running's been my thing. And for me, it allows me, I actually get clarity when I run. So I run a lot. I run 7 days a week. And it's my me time. I was doing a lot of training this year. I had a coach was aiming to do the 100K Surf Coast. I've done, I think 3 other marathons and a couple of trail races, and the 50K trail was an epic trail race in the Yuyangs near Geelong. So if anyone knows the Yuyangs, it's bloody hilly. It was one of the toughest 50Ks I've done with, I can't remember what our elevation was, but it was going up and down Flinders Peak 3 times and the saddle 3 times.
So you've got the hills, but also it's trails. So you've got rocks
trails,
and you've got...
Yeah, it was full on, and we had gale force winds in the last 10 Ks, which kind of is very soul crushing when you've just run for 5 hours. So it's really a mental challenge. Like people say, Sophie, why do you run so far? And you obviously you have to be fit, but that mental ability to talk yourself around when you want to give up is something that's a real personal challenge. And yes, after I did that race, I was about 8 weeks out from my 100K event, and I had a run that was just a weekend run up to 33 Ks a couple of weeks after. So I was just running around myself, and I just had in my head, I've got to do X, Y, and Z, and I was just hating this run. And I got home and I messaged my coach and I said, Matt, I'm done. I'm not doing it. And he's just said, I'll speak to you Monday, whatever. And I just had this moment of clarity of I'd just been thinking to myself that I want to run half-K trail races because they're fun and they're nice and it's not too far. And you can kind of do it without training a hell of a lot if you run as much as I do, instead of killing your body on the 100 Ks. And I had this random conversation, interesting, with Mark Colwell from AC Solar. On the Monday, I rang him up and was speaking to him about something weird, and he made some comment about people always say they're going to do something after they do whatever they don't want to do. It was something along those lines, and it was just what I needed to hear at the right point in time. And so I decided not to do the 100K race, and I'm very glad that I didn't. So it was a real lesson for me about working out what my goals are and what's really important. But
it wasn't a failure. Running 50 Ks is a huge achievement still.
Yeah, I know. It's an epic achievement. Most people won't even run 5 Ks at one time in their life. And that's just a short daytime
We had
run.
Peter on the show last week, and he was telling us that part of his routine is the ice bath. Is this something common? You do the ice bath as well?
No, people that do ice baths are fucking crazy. I hate the cold, and I think people that do that and think that is something that is great for their body, good on them. And I did it for a short period of time when I trained for my first marathon. I hate the cold. I grew up in Tassie, and I was this really skinny, quite weird-looking kid. And every time I did a swimming lesson, this skinny kid would turn purple in the water. And so that's how much I feel the cold. And my swimming teachers would say, "Oh, Sophie, quick, get out and have a shower." So I spent my swimming lessons in a hot shower because I hate the cold. Consequently, I'm not a really great swimmer, but I just think these people are mad.
But there's parallels between it, sort of pushing your body and getting some mental challenge. Yeah.
Truly, but I'm just not ever going to do that.
So saunas, you're more a sauna person then.
Absolutely. I'll sit in a sauna, put it out, jump in a spa. Relax.
I'm more a spa person myself,
Yeah,
with a glass of bubbly. Perfect.
Glass of bubbly. Massage, 2-hour massage. Yeah, happy days.
We haven't got time for much more. Is there anything else you want to say before you sign off? Because I can say that there's some little bit of inspiration here as well, I've found, because you've got the personal challenges, professional challenges. It seems that most people, it's like a tide, it's in or it's out. So sometimes they're in the super motivated, sometimes they're more in a bit of a rut. Now, certainly on the East Coast, you mentioned the rain and the floods, and you mentioned it's been a very challenging year for many. So what advice would you give to people who are going through the rut at the moment?
Yeah, it's a really good point. Like, a lot of people have been really struggling, and whether that's, right to that sort of mental health element, or just going through a point when you're not overly feeling great about what you're doing. For me, that happens too. It's like the roller coaster, up and down, everything's up and down, and sales, you really get exposed to that quite a lot as well. I think it's just putting into perspective and thinking about all the good things as well, and knowing that things pass. So we have really had a really crap couple of years, but we've all got through that to a point. And now, yes, there are still going to be days and weeks and times that are really tough, but being able to reach out to others, and it's really interesting, even within the industry, I've made some really nice connections with people who actually feel that I can say it and they can say it, like, I'm just having a really tough time at the moment. And just knowing that you can check in with that person, and it's okay to say that to somebody. Just when you are that sort of, raw and tell somebody that you're having a tough time, the amount of support that you can get can just be enough to really pull you through. And it's really important to reach out. I've had family members, we've been really impacted by a family with mental health issues, and please, I just say to people, reach out to whoever. You'll be surprised. People are going to be supportive when you open up and let them know that you're having a tough time.
Great advice. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Sophie Wright from Geelong Electrical Vehicle Charging, and also Vortex Electrical, and AWISE, and all the other ones that we mentioned before. Really appreciate you coming on, Sophie. It's been a great chat.
Thanks, Luke. Thanks, Karl.
Our industry is very happy to have you, Sophie. Thank you for your continued over and above input. I think it's really great that we have people like yourself, Sam, Keisha, who promises that she's going to be on the show soon. We have these great people in our industry that can keep us on the straight and narrow. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Please click subscribe, like, share it around to anyone who might get benefit. Thanks.